Thank you, snowboarding.
Thank you, snowboarding.
Hey friends, how you doing? My name is Chris Cracknell. You are listening to Thank You Snowboarding, the podcast uncovering all aspects of UK snowboarding culture, from the guys up in Scotland hand building boards, and indeed in the south of England and all round the country hand building boards in the 80s, through to where we are now with a young crop of riders killing it on the world scene. And we do this with the kind support of the Snowboard Asylum, who have been looking after snowboarders for 35 years, so they know what you need and have the kit that you need. And they've got a sale on, but more about that at the end. So I hope you're doing all right out there. The Brits is currently on as we speak. Sadly, I couldn't make it out there because we are taking our kids snowboarding. As you listen to this, we'll be in the Alps giving in their first encounter with the mountains and with snowboards. So exciting times. But if you're out of the Brits, big respect to you. Send me pictures and we'll put them up on our Instagram. So yeah, the season is ticking along. We're now in April and this is the penultimate episode of this season. But we'll get into all that stuff next week on the last episode. Loads to cover. So the subject of this week's episode is a lifer from Elgin in Scotland called McWatt. He ran a very cool, very hardcore skate snow shop up there called ESP for 25 years, called That Is Life. And as we get into, he wasn't only running the shop, he was lending people boards, driving them up to the Lecht to go snowboarding, giving people lessons. I mean, this guy lived and breathed snowboarding for 25 years. And as we caught up over Zoom, you could see paraphernalia of his shop that he now keeps in his shed. He's got boards on the ceiling, old Libtex, skateboards, and just the guy's had a life in snowboarding and has turned so many people onto snowboarding. I think I've mentioned it before in these podcasts that I think the guys that work in shops are the real scene makers. They're the people that organise shop trips. They're the people that get your average punter stoked on snowboarding on a daily basis. They build communities, which is so important, and obviously with the advent of online shopping is becoming a rarer and rarer thing, and I think that is a sad thing for snowboarding, but we talk about all that. And yeah, Mike's love of snowboarding, still pulling backflips at the age of 51 in a kilt. I mean, I'm not quite there yet, but I know that I won't be doing a backflip when I'm 51, I don't think. I mean, I'd have to learn them first. I think learning a backflip at 51 might be a bit of a stretch. But yeah, Mike is a proper lifer, and an interesting story about how he got into having a shop in a small town in the north of Scotland. So I really hope you enjoy this one. This is Mike McWatt, ESP for life. I just quickly Googled you to see what I might find, and I saw a competition at the Lecht, and I don't know how long it was ago, but apparently you were throwing backflips at the age of 49.
Well, it was, yeah, there's one of me in my kilt. It was 51. It was my last ever backflip on my 51st birthday.
Oh man, how long ago was that?
That was 7 years ago.
Okay, that's pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
In a kilt as well.
Probably one of the only tricks I ever learned.
I never got round to a backflip.
Yeah.
I didn't get round to that many tricks generally, but yeah, the backflip always eluded me.
Yeah, it was one of that crowd pleasers. I never got round to a 360.
Oh really?
It was a backflip or a front flip.
So tell me about where I'm talking to you from, because I can see that there's that a Matt Cummings on the ceiling, there's a Banana Magic, I can't make out what the one with the face is on. I can see an ESP skate deck.
That would be the Emma Peel.
That's an Emma Peel, is it?
It's it's an Element skateboard project, so it's an Element deck.
Okay.
It's a nice ride, DH at the back there.
Yeah.
They were in the shed, garden shed. It's which is just full of boards.
How come those boards have sort of made it for keepers?
Over the years, different boards I've ridden and enjoyed, and I've always kind of held on to my Mervyn decks.
Yeah.
So yeah, the shed is like a shrine to kind of my life of just everything. Instead of filling the walls in the house, I've just built a building in the garden and absolutely filled it with everything from all my travels, etc.
Amazing. Why are those particular boards memorable to you?
There's the Emma Peel above me there. I won my first and only comp at the age of 36.
Go on, tell me about that.
That was the Highland Fling up in Aviemore.
Yeah,
it was sponsored by Headworks back then, and that was a backflip in a kilt again, funnily enough. So that's that deck, and then other decks are just from journeys and ones I've just loved, and a different place, France or Canada, and So I've got too many lying about.
Man, you can't have too many. It's like records. Can't have too many. That's what I tell my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that is it a Matt Cummings, the one that's above you with the breaking wave on it?
It is, yeah, with the BMXer on the bottom.
Oh, the Rad Rick.
No, sorry, that's got the wave.
What's that got on the base plate? Has it got the is it the camper van on the base plate of that? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
No, it's a pool skater.
Is it the pool skater?
That grind in the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Rad Rick's got the BMXer.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, that's like one of the holy grails, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. I had two of them.
Did you?
And there was a plea came up on the Lib forum years ago.
Yeah.
From the artist trying to track down a deck because he never got a deck off of LibTech when he'd done the art for it.
No way.
He'd done the top sheet.
Yeah.
And when I came on and said, I've got two of them, I'll sell you one. So I sold one off cheap to the artist, Andrew Gesney, I think his name was. So he'd done the art. He'd done the top sheet artwork for it.
Oh,
so that's where the other one went. Yeah.
That's a nice thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. It was get him sorted.
Yeah, man. So I take it you know about the podcast.
I know about them, but I've never seen anything. I don't have any laptops or tablets, or all I've got's an old phone, and I've got no technology.
Why is that? Just out of interest.
I've never been.
Is it a conscious decision?
No, I just felt I didn't need computers in my life for anything.
Yeah.
I do more practical work. I like my woodworking things, and I'm just not into the social media much.
Fair enough.
And I'm computer illiterate, so I've never needed one at any of my jobs.
Even running the shop?
Everything was pen and paper.
Really?
Yeah.
No way. Oh man.
Going to trade shows.
Yeah.
Going to the trade shows, I'd have a notebook.
Yeah.
And I'd write in there every size of shoe, all the size of boards. I'd go from stand to stand, thinking, what do I want for next season?
Yeah. That's incredible. I mean, fair play to you. I mean, technology is definitely brings as many problems as it solves problems.
So yeah, because I don't know how to use it, it doesn't bring me any.
No, well, this is it. There's not many people like you in the world, Mike. And fair play to you. So basically, the premise of the podcast is I'm trying to collate history of British snowboarding.
Yeah, well done.
And tell the stories of the culture, and not just the history, kind of, it is up to date as well, talking about like what is going on in snowboarding today and all that kind of stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's basically trying to create the big historical picture of what UK snowboarding is. So, and doing that through telling each episode is an individual's story of their path in snowboarding.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we will go back and talk about the shop and how you started the shop and basically your life in snowboarding, and then we'll bring it up to date with like talking about like what it means to you and why somebody else should do it.
Yeah, cool.
I mean, you've probably got more. I think shop owners really are the unsung heroes of what makes a brilliant scene, because you're on the front line talking to people and getting people jazzed up for snowboarding every day. I know you're not doing it now, but you know, certainly back in the day, you know, I knew about your shop. And did you guys come and stay at the chalet? Did you come to the chalet?
The Rad Air one out in France.
It was called Chill Chalet.
Chill Chalet.
There was definitely a bunch of people from Elgin came, because it became a kind of little Elgin outside of Elgin for a few years, because loads of natives called it home for a spell.
There was a lot of local riders. You know, we had a fair squad of people hooked up from Aberdeen to, you know, Inverness and in between.
Yeah.
You know, who travelled the scene and were everywhere with their ESP stickers and hoodies and just loving boarding.
Yeah.
So yeah, there will be a lot of stories from all over the planet where people have come from, you know, the Highlands.
Yeah. So my connection with Elgin is not only that lots of people from Elgin came and stayed with us and then moved to Borg and spent seasons there, but it turns out I'm related to the guy who runs the quarry that made the stones for the basilica in Barcelona. I can't think of his name. I did know his name, but it turns out
Drew Bailey.
Drew Bailey. That's exactly it. Yeah. He's my mum's uncle or something like that.
No way.
I didn't know this, and then we met loads of people from Elgin, and then I was talking to my mum about it, and she said, "Oh yeah, I think I'm related to somebody up there. He owns this quarry or something like that."
Yeah, the quarry it's some of the finest, hardest sandstone which they needed for.
Yeah.
Some of Murray sandstone is also in Sagrada Familia.
Yeah.
It's because they need the right banding, the right colour, everything. And yeah, there's been a lot of it in Scotland.
Yeah.
So much sandstone that's built, you know, so much of Britain anyway.
Yeah.
But we have got some good stone up here.
It seems, you seem to know a bit about it. It's funny. It's just funny how I met a lot of people from Elgin, and some became really good friends. And then all of a sudden there was like this other connection. And it was like, that seems to like, you know, that felt like serendipity. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let's dive back in time. How did you get into snowboarding? Like where did you see it and what drew you to it?
Would have been the Gardner brothers, John and Steve.
Okay.
They started back in the 80s, and I got into it. I would have been skating with John. I tried a bit of surfing, and then went out boarding with them just in fields and just got hooked.
Yeah.
Got an old K2 gyrator, I think it was.
Brilliant.
And yeah, just went sliding in local fields.
Yeah. What year? When would that have been?
That would have been 91, I think. It would have been about early 91, I think. Okay. And then I went out to work in the Middle East. And I came back with a load of money and decided, right, I'm going to buy myself a load of gear. And went through to Aberdeen, Freedom Sports, and got myself kitted and new stuff. It was so expensive back then, you needed to have some money.
Yeah. What were you doing in the Middle East, if you don't mind me asking?
So clearing minefields.
Jesus Christ!
After the Gulf War in '91.
No way! You got to tell me more about that. How do you go about clearing a minefield?
Well, my dad, he had a contract with the MOD.
Right.
He invented this mine clearing machine called the aardvark,
Right.
which was a flail. He built it up here with an agricultural company.
Yeah.
He then sold it on to the MOD, and it went all over the world clearing minefields.
No way.
So I managed to. I'd had enough of working offshore. I was there for 4 years on the rigs.
Yeah.
And so he says, well, you can get a chance to go out to Kuwait if you want after the Gulf War had finished.
Wow.
And I was like, totally. I was 24, I think.
Okay.
And off I went, made some money, came home and decided I'm not going back to being a plumber or back to the rigs.
Yeah.
And thought I'm just going to spend some money for a few months. And in that time, a lot of friends had wanted to get into snowboarding and surfing and have lots of cool gear, have our Oakleys and our Vision skate shoes. And
Yeah.
so I decided I'd phone up these companies, and they just asked for a letterhead, business card and a check, and they would send a catalogue and I would just pick stuff because I said, oh, I'm opening a shop.
Right.
Originally, I was just trying to blag some cheap gear.
Yeah.
And so for about 6 months, I just bought stock off of so many companies,
Right.
which just came to my house and I would sell it to my friends cheap. So the crew of boarders started to grow. And
so did you have any, like, was that just a sort of an accident that you started a shop, or?
Yeah. I had no intentions of starting a shop. I just wanted to get cheap gear for me and my friends.
Yeah.
And after almost a year, my house was filling up. My attic was full. And somebody approached me and said, look, you better watch the HMRC. And I was oblivious. I was like, well, this is my money. I'm buying goods and selling them. He says, yeah, but you can't do that. So I went to the Prince's Trust with a business plan.
Yeah.
They gave me £40 a week and helped me start up. Because I had all this money I came home with, not knowing what to do, really.
Yeah.
A young guy with too much money. So I just spent it and bought loads of gear, opened up a shop, and just started to get kids into surfing, skating, snowboarding, because I just loved it myself so much. And
so were you skating from a younger age before you went to the Middle East?
I'd skated back in the 70s just as a kind of street skater, just for the fun. I wasn't a hardcore skater as such. There wasn't really much in the way of half pipes or a big skate scene up north.
Was there many people doing it where you lived? Like, did you have could you see it?
Yeah, you had your small crew. Again, that was the Gardner brothers. Yep. They were into surfing, snowboarding, skating. So it was just like, no way. I want to learn that stuff and be as cool as them.
What's the surfing scene up there like?
Surfing scene's always been not too busy because it's cold.
Yeah.
A lot of commitment for people to go out and hunt for waves and wrap up in neoprene to go out and catch them. So a lot of dedication for surfers up here.
Oh, cool.
Something I've not done for years now. I'm not a great swimmer, but as I say, just my body's just too many injuries over the years snowboarding.
So how then? So you got some money. Well, you got a small amount of money off the Prince's Trust. When did you sort of actually start looking like a shop?
I started late '92, and then from my house, I had it all set up in my attic there.
Yeah.
And then got my first premises in, I think it was March '93, and the bank, they were a bit sceptical, thinking, oh, you've got 3 years forecasts showing that you'll make profit. They said, oh, you won't make anything for a while. Then very first year, profit. Second year, more profit. Third year, more profit. It was very new back then in '92, '93.
Yeah.
So we had 2 RAF bases beside us and so many youngsters with disposable income who would just come in and buy a full setup. So it picked up and just exploded. in our
So
area.
who were you stocking at the time? Like what did well for you?
Right back from the early days, I stocked Volcom, because I think they were invented 91, 92-ish. So I stocked them right from the start.
Wow.
Stocked Mervyn right from the start. Stocked Mervyn for 25 years.
No way.
And I just fell in love with their stuff. I'd have Evol, Kempa, Joyride, Nideca, and then I did do Burton for 3 years, but just found it just weren't for me. And
Really?
I just never.
Quite interesting, isn't it?
Burton as a company, it was second level at the time.
Yeah.
And they said you must stock more Burton in your store than any other brand to be successful.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'll just drop you then. And their words were, you'll never survive without Burton. So I went out of my way to just be more Lib Gnu, ride, a lot of that stuff, the morals. And so I done everything but Burton for, the other 22 years.
That's quite fascinating, isn't it?
So,
I mean, I guess that, that aggressive business model worked well for some people, but I mean, you obviously know your customers and know what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite mad that a snowboard. You'd think that most people in snowboarding would be pretty cool and just like that sort of aggressive business practice. You would think wouldn't really have a place in snowboarding, would you? It's quite surprising to see that, but it's not the first time I've heard of that.
But for me, it wasn't about the money. I just the Mervyn stuff had crazy graphics and I just loved it for the sport. But the whole 25 years at ESP, it very rarely was it ever about the money. It was just a lifestyle. It was the worst paid job I've had in my life, but certainly by far the best. Yeah. For me it was just fun, just boredom, and I thought, no, I don't need a company telling me what I need. So I was successful without them. It's like Ford. They're a big massive company, but they don't make the best cars. They're popular. No, they're popular. So so that was my view.
That's pretty cool. So what did an average season look like back in the days? I mean, I did my first season 93, 94. That was the season of like the Hack and Sword, the Lamars with the, like the Ranquit.
Right, aye.
Graphic. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to think of what the sort of standout products were there. I can't really think of any others. So what did your shop look like at the time then, sort of around that, sort of a year or two into opening?
It was kind of like an Aladdin's cave. Yeah. It was kind of like my shed.
Right.
It was covered walls to roof. People walked in. It was a very small premises, actually smaller than my shed.
Right.
And so when people came in, there wasn't a piece of wall space you could find.
Yeah.
It had something on it. So it just looked like a little Aladdin's cave, and people loving stickers and smelling sex wax and things, and they'd leave with something, even if it was just a sticker.
How did you just sort of trust your instincts as to what to have in the shop? I mean, now people would track sales and things, obviously with technology. Yeah. But as you've said, you don't use technology now, and you certainly didn't when the shop was around because there wasn't that much of it around. But so how do you you just sort of have that gut instinct of what you think is going to work really well? What did work really well? And then was there anything that didn't work really well?
The good thing back then, you had catalogues. So I would go to the trade shows, which were the best thing ever. That's what having a shop was about. You went to trade shows, and it was crazy, the people you met and what you got up to at the stands, and it was just so much fun at trade shows.
So you would have come down to Soltex at the GMEX.
Soltex a lot, Soltex, GMEX, so the London, Edinburgh, Manchester.
Yeah.
So you'd be going to trade shows and just meeting all these characters. so many of them. They'll know who they are, even if they're watching this. But yeah, that was a massive part of the fun lifestyle, was going to a trade show.
Yeah.
And I would just have a notebook. I'd go to the stand, look at decks, and look at the graphics on that. You know, whether it be, you know, a Hawkinson or, you know, a Jeff Brushy or whatever it was.
Yeah.
In those days, you know, early 90s, where you had the DJ deck and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I've got one of them in the garage.
Have you? Oh, man.
I'll sell you that one cheap.
I might take you up on that. I love a brush.
I've no space for it, and I'm not going to put any Barton in my shed ever.
All right, we'll talk after this. I definitely want that off you, I think.
Aye, yeah. So happy for you to have it, because it's, DJ deck.
Sweet.
So yeah, it was for me, I would look at a board and go, oh, that's quality. I'll have two of them. One in this size, one in that. And I'd have to listen to the reps. They would say, oh, you need some of these, or you need some of that. And I'd be, well, our hills are so small, and there's fences everywhere. We spend all our time checking speed or turning.
Yeah.
So I'd buy different boards from what a lot of the other shops would buy.
Okay.
And I didn't have the budget, you know, like Grand Prix or Boardwise or these people to buy a lot of a certain brand. So when customers came into the store, they would say, Mike, are you getting any of these in? And I would say, well, I'm getting one in a 152 and I'm getting a 157. And they would say, right, there's 50 quid. I'm wanting that one when it comes in.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times, for most of the years, I had almost half my stock pre-sold.
Oh, wow.
Before it ever arrived.
Yeah.
So I'd be selling 20 Libtex in a month.
Wow.
Which was just crazy for such a small shop.
Yeah.
Because I'd come back from a trade show with the catalogue, and all friends and customers would put their name against something and just start paying it up over the summer.
Yeah.
And when the boards came in, that was them out the door, because I let people pay them up. That was a big part of letting people who couldn't afford it get into it.
Yeah.
From February, March, from my trade shows and my orders had to be in. I says, right, you've got until October to pay for it. So that got people riding good boards.
That's insane. And that's also like, that helps build the community around your shop as well. I mean, I guess especially for a small shop, and I guess there's probably, well, I don't know, you could tell me, is there, you know, much sort of passing trade in Elgin? Because you are in Elgin, aren't you? I just want to make sure
Elgin,
before I bang on about being related to someone in Elgin.
In Elgin.
Is there much, like, you know, sort of passing trade for this stuff? Or is it people are coming to you especially because that was where you bought kit?
Some people would come specially to me because of the brands I stocked.
Yeah.
You know, so people would come in for a certain lib or, you know, some of the more expensive items.
Yeah.
So I know there was good enough passing trade. And as I said, there was 2 RAF stations close by. So there was no shortage of money in the area. Yeah. A lot of fishermen, so many people in the oil rigs, a lot of farming and agriculture, all the distilleries. So the Northeast, there is a lot of money in the Northeast.
Okay.
So, it was good days.
And so I don't know if you ever met a guy called Oggy who ran a shop in the Midlands called Lifestyle.
No.
But I talked to him last season, and he was one of those, you know, kind of, because I worked, I don't know, did our paths cross when I worked for Airwalk? I did Airwalk for a season. Mm-hmm. Did you ever? I don't think you stocked Airwalk, did you?
I did, yeah.
Did you? Okay, well
I did obliques, free rides, obliques.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, well, I oversaw the demise. It wasn't my fault, the demise of Airwalk, but I was definitely there when it happened. Where was I going with that?
Oggy.
Yeah, Oggy. So, yeah, it's that kind of, you know, he would have people in his shop, sort of newbies would come in and he would sit them down and he had a whole talk about, you know, obviously somewhere like the Midlands, he was kitting people out to go out to the Alps probably.
Right.
Or to a dry, you know, there was dry slopes as well, but it was probably mostly like for people going away. But he had a whole. I mean, I think it's fair enough to call it a lecture on all these different facets that you should know about. And because of that, he built up quite a community around his shop because he was so passionate that snowboarders get the right information so that they enjoy their snowboarding. They don't make the missteps of, there's the old skiing adage of buy the boots a size too small and then sort of wear them in. Or like sleep in them before you go away and all, all these crazy things that you just think that's just absolute bullshit, isn't it? But just from my sort of experience of doing a bit of shop work, there are people come in with quite wild ideas of what, should a board come up to your chin, all this sort of thing. And it's...
Aye.
So what I'm saying is, like, in your, obviously when you're building a community around your shop, which, I'm certain you did because I know lots of people that know your shop. Did you spend a lot of time with your customers, like shooting the shit and hanging out? And
a lot of my customers, one of them, he became my best man.
Right.
It's teaching people. Because I rented out everything, I would take people up the hill in the car. There could be, families even. Say, look, I'll meet you at the Lecht. I'll throw all your kit in my car.
Yeah.
I'll take up all sorts of sizes of boots and just say, look, whatever's comfortable. And I would take them up and teach them. They'd come back to the shop. So they became customers and friends.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time teaching, and a lot of time talking in the shop saying, this is, choose your own gear, but this is roughly the size you need. And but they could try before they buy, because most of my rental stock was Mervyn.
Okay.
I didn't want to rent out anything.
Yep.
So people would come in and they would see a board that's going to cost them 500 quid. And they would say, oh, what's that board like? I'll say, look, you can borrow mine, ride it for the day and come back.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, holy shit, I'm away with the boss's Libtech. And they'd come back and be like, that's amazing, I need one of them.
Yeah.
And so that was it. A lot of trust in letting people try before they buy. As I said, they could try magnet traction. They could, when things changed in early 2000s to negative camber, people would ask about that, and I would say, well, this is how I've got on. Try it yourself, because I've got both in my rental stock.
Yeah.
It was, you had to be involved in your customers.
Yeah, see, that's quite incredible, isn't it? And that's, maybe something that gets lost, isn't it? Is the fact that you're dealing with the person who gets the stock in, rides the stuff, knows it inside out, and then, just go and borrow that, go and have a ride on it. No one's going to come back from that experience thinking, I don't want that board. Do you know what I mean? Because there'll be all those other factors involved in it. The fact that someone's put their trust in them to take the thing out and ride it and to see what it's like. There's all these other sort of additional factors that play into it that makes it more than just walking into a shop and buying a thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's all that emotional stuff that will then go along with it.
Oh, yeah, you'd much rather be connected, and I would go out for beers with them. I'd have ESP parties.
Yeah.
Most of them at Chevy's, but it was your customers did become great friends, and they had total trust in you, and they would come back to you all the time to buy their footwear, their anything, sunglasses, servicing. So as opposed to a computer, you don't have that. You don't get the banter with them. No,
exactly. And there's all that anecdotal stuff, that an experience that's built up over time that is invaluable, really.
Yeah.
And bring someone in, because snowboarding is a community, and if you stood out, I do wonder sometimes if you're stood outside of the community, how is it very welcoming? Do you know what I mean? It's all great when you're in it because it's brilliant, everyone's really nice, but if you're stood outside it, is it as welcoming as you might feel like it should be when you're in it? Do you know what I mean?
Right through the 90s, the people that were getting into it were fully passionate, that wanted to get into it.
Yeah.
So, we were all encouraging. People were encouraging with me, saying, right, come with us. And I would go places with people and they would push your levels. And then, you know, when I would have beginners, I would teach them and say, look, you have to start somewhere. And they would then be, you know, encouraged by you and your friends to say, oh, I want to learn this trick. Or we'd go hiking with people, road trips with people. And so, yeah, customers and friends are all alike.
Yeah. That's incredible. I love that. And I sort of, you know, I don't ever want to feel, you know, I don't ever want to come across as like the good old days. But I certainly think in retail, you know, the old days were so much better because you had passionate people that you'd go and speak to, and, you know, you're dealing with the boss of the company and, you know, people like you know, and there were people like you in shops all around the UK. And that's what I think is partly why we had partly why we've got such an incredible sort of culture and history in the sport, and why our sport, you know, like as a country, we punch way above sort of most other countries in terms of our sort of cultural impact in snowboarding, is because of all the individuals in shops, you know, small shops all around the country doing the daily work of getting people stoked on snowboarding.
And in those days, there were sort of, later towards the millennium, there were so many small independents. It was great to see, but then as time went on, a lot of my own suppliers, loads of brilliant suppliers, some not so good, but it got to the stage where they said, right, minimum order 25,000, or minimum order so many units. And I was like, guys, I'm just one tiny shop in the Highlands. I can't stock that amount of stuff. And the good companies were like, okay, Mike, look, well, I know your order's small, but I know you're good for it, so we'll let you have this small one. And because I was still getting their name out in my area. And some of the bigger companies were just, well, if you can't make this order, you can't have your stuff. I said, that's fine, I'll just stop doing you. Massive companies, some of them. I said, really? Well, I won't stock your shoe in my shop anymore. And it's simple as that.
I mean, it is a shame, isn't it? Like, it definitely got more business-like, and it probably became less fun.
And that was hard on the small shops. Because we didn't have the budgets or a shop even big enough to fit 25 grand of stock from one company. Totally. You know, my winter order sometimes would be 25, 30 grand for my whole next season. Never mind one company telling me it's all but us. So in a way it did shape my shop in that, you know, I wouldn't have so many of some of the more popular brands, because I chose to, you know, have the companies that supported me to say, you know, you can stay open, have our brand, and that'd be cool. So
then, where were you riding? Because you sort of said up to the Lecht. How far away are you from, when the snow's there, sort of rideable terrain in Scotland?
The Lecht is about 40 minutes away.
Okay.
So it's not far. It's a small hill. It's the smallest of them all, but there is a bit of backcountry. The Macintoshes who ran it then were amazing. They were so good to us with comps, and you know, it's getting the son would go up and build kickers for us, and he would just drive out in his pisty and just build whatever we needed, and we'd hike over the back, and he would get lifts back, and it was just such a good rapport we had going with the Lecht. So we would send all our rental people there saying, well, to start with, it's the gentler mountain to get into the sport, so spend your money there. And then they would give me a shop pass to say, right, you come up any time. And so I would teach up there, and people spent their money in their cafe or whatever.
Did you have to get qualified?
I wasn't, no.
Qualified
to me was boarding for years. You know, I got so many people into it easily. Because I just love doing it, and I would just say to them, like, this is how it is. So I didn't find it hard to teach, and just been able to get, you know, good personal skills, speaking to people and communicating, and being very just, you know, patient with them.
Totally. And you know, you if you kit someone out and then teach them, you know, they're your customer for life, aren't they? Essentially, like why they're not going to go anywhere else because they're so engaged with you and what you're doing.
Yeah, we'd have that from the parents who would say, right, my son and daughter want to go boarding, you know, how do we go about it?
Yeah.
And I would say, you can hire from here. If you're unable to take them up, look, I can take them up in my car, teach them and drop them back home to you. No. And the guy would be like, okay, there's an extra 50 quid if you can take my kids up and teach them and take them home. Yeah. And I would do it. And that parent would then, the kid might say, oh, Dad, yeah, I want this Barton board. I saw it in a magazine.
Yeah.
And the dad would be, no, you're buying from ESP.
Yeah.
That's the man that taught you. And we are going into his shop and get a board. So
wicked. That's
the bonds it would create.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Again, it's just incredible, isn't it? I love that so much. I mean, I feel kind of, you know, I spent a bit of time spent a season working at the board store at Brentwood Dry Slope. When would that have been? That was, I don't know, 96 or something. And that was very much, I mean, that was a shed, essentially, a shed at a dry slope. And so I sort of feel, you know, and that would be, you know, like, yeah, let's go. We'll go out and get the ramps out and we'll ride together and stuff like that. And then you'll come in the shop and I'll get you what you need and all that sort of stuff. Like, I feel like I've sort of lived a bit of that, not as much as you, for instance, but definitely I can relate to that, you know, kind of, I'll kit you out, we'll go riding, then we'll probably go and get a pint in the bar. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Had to be a beer after.
And we'll just chat snowboarding the whole time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that so much. So tell me about like the sort of evolution of the shop. When did you close or when did you step away from it?
Everything started to go computerized, and even with the trade shows were becoming less, and you would get an e-catalogue. I'd have to get my wife's laptop and open it up and figure out to go through these things. To do clothing orders were just so hard.
Yeah.
This size of that jacket, a medium in this, I want this design, this colour. It just frustrated me.
Yeah.
Boards not so bad. You could flick through them. Right, I'll have that board. But when it came to digital catalogues, I was just lost. Yeah. And I always demanded a paper catalogue, which sat on my counter as soon as I got back from trade shows, and that's where my orders came from.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's something that is lost, isn't it, really? Having it there on the counter that someone go, oh, is that next? Because people get excited for next year's stuff, but you can't really show it to them on a computer. It's not the same, is it?
Even the reps, they loved coming up the road. They loved to visit and show you, and you know, they would come up and would play darts and hang out in the shed and drink whiskey, and and they would get a better order because you have a few drinks and I'll order two of those instead of one then. Yeah. So you became great friends with so many reps, and when the trade shows started to dwindle, and everything went computerized, we just saw less of them. So, you know, it was a shame they weren't on the road anymore. That is part of the love of the 25 years of snowboarding for me. Yeah. Were those people you met and hung out with, or you met them abroad, you went riding with them, Scotland or wherever. Yeah. Did you get abroad much? I know it's like when the season's in full swing, it's probably hard to get away from your shop because obviously that's when you take a lot of money. But did you get away much? Not a lot for me. I never really had much money to go abroad. Every penny I kept pumping into my shop. Yeah. In 96, low pressure publications offered me a chance to go out to Canada to help with one of the Storm Rider guides. Oh yeah. Because they had one of their journalist type dudes. He'd hurt himself. Right. So I think February 97, they said, can you go out to Canada and go round up? You'll meet a guy from Switzerland and meet him in Vancouver, and we need you to go across BC and Alberta, around all these hills. We want you to take photographs and write about them and send us information back. So
why did they choose you?
Because I'd had quite a few photographs printed in SUK and Snowboarding and all these magazines. Because every time I went up the hill, I'd have a backpack full of, camera gear.
Right.
So I carried my 35mm everywhere. Took so many photographs, and some of the shop riders who were sponsored.
Yeah.
So that was 97. So 96 was in the free ride chalet. It was the Radair chalet in Villandry.
The free ride motel.
Free ride motel.
Yeah. Who was I talking with? Duncan Carr.
Oh, right, yeah.
He mentioned your name. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I was out there doing some cooking and, bed making and servicing boards and
Did you work with a girl called Zusha Stroyanovsky?
I can't remember.
Tall blonde girl.
There was a girl worked there, but I can't remember her name.
Okay.
Probably it was too much beer.
No. It's just that we were friends. We hung out in London a bit after that season, and then I lost touch with her. Just
right.
And I don't even know how to spell her name, so I can't even find her anywhere.
That was like my first season away. Was 96. Thanks to the guys at Radair.
Because there was a trip, didn't Ian Sampson and Andy Davis and Duncan, they all came out and stayed there on a Snowboard UK trip. Is that right?
Yeah, Dan Lane and all of them.
That's right, yeah.
There's a few of them. Chris Carr, was it? No, Duncan Carr, Chris, I remember the other one. But yeah, Percy was there.
That's
so
right.
There was so that crew came out from SS20.
Yeah.
To do some shooting and things and trial some gear.
Yeah.
And because I was working in the chalet, they'd all go off in the morning and I'd get the dishes done and make the beds and I think, right, what am I going to do all day? So I jumped on my board and there was a field opposite the chalet.
That's right.
Down the bottom, there was a big amphitheatre with a rock in the middle with a river behind it. So I hiked back up to the chalet, got a shovel, and I shoveled tons of snow from one side of this rock to the other to make this massive boota, and then shoveled more snow to make a landing, and then I flattened out a little path going back up the hill, made a platform, packed it all down, and the guys the SS20 Snowboard UK crew came back, and they were, what you up to today, Mike? So I built a jump down in the field, and I remember in the morning, I can't remember who stayed. Will Hughes, he stayed on the top floor, I think. And him and some guys came down saying, holy shit, there's a massive kick at the bottom of this field. Because they could only see it from the 4th floor of the chalet.
Right.
You couldn't see it from the road or from the 2nd floor.
Yeah.
Then, so they said, you said you built a jump. I said, down the bottom. So had breakfast. Everybody slid down the bottom and decided, right, we're doing a session here.
Yeah.
And it became the secret garden of Pise Nanqua.
That's right.
And they'd done an article in the summer edition, Snowboard UK.
I remember the article because, me and my mate Toby, we were in Les Arcs for that season.
Right.
I'm surprised our paths didn't. Maybe they did. I don't remember.
Probably did.
But on because you were down by the old lobster pots, weren't you?
The lobster pots, yeah.
They've been taken out apparently.
Right.
I'm devastated to hear they're probably in Eastern Europe somewhere now. But, that was good times. That was a good season.
That was my first season away, and then meeting those guys was brilliant as well.
Yep.
So that was good, and then it was from there that Radair in the same building in Latimer Road is Low Pressure.
That's right, yeah.
And Low Pressure needed somebody to go out and help with this book.
Yeah.
And they'd said, we had the guy Mike from ESP help out at the chalet last year. Competent boarder, does some good photographs. Yep, try him.
Wicked.
And they phoned me up they phoned me up at the shop saying, "Oh, Mike, would you like to go away to Canada for a few months to help us gather information for the Storm Rider?" I'd already helped them out with the surf guides,
Right.
but at the time, my eldest brother, he wasn't working. He'd kind of just come out of college doing a journalism thing.
Yeah.
And I said to him, go for it. Look, there's a chance of a job away. And he wasn't so much, into the same. He says, "Nah, I'm not bothered." I says, "Well, I'll bloody go if you can look after the shop." He says, "Yeah, that's cool. I'll look after the shop. You go to Canada." So that was me. That's when I flew out on my 30th birthday. I flew out to Canada and I was there for 2.5 months, just road tripping with this pickup truck and a guy, Tim King, and just journey of my life.
Yeah, I bet it was.
It was unbelievable. So yeah, that just cemented this crazy love for snowboarding, and had to get home and just make it even bigger and get build a team and build the shop. And so yeah, that's only really 2 times I'd went. Other than that, it would just be trips back out to Canada to visit family.
Right.
Because I've got a few uncles live in Canada.
I mean, that's cool.
And a few friends. So I would go out and just ride Canada more than Europe, because it was just it was free accommodation, and I just fell in love with riding out there in the Rockies.
BC powder, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, we all would if we could, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Where's tell me a hidden nugget. Where should somebody go, like that bit off the beaten track or whatever?
Red Mountain,
right?
Roseland, Red Mountain. There's so many places, Big White, and then you've got the usual ones, Revelstoke and Golden, but there's just such a choice across there. Between Alberta and BC, it's never ending.
Do you watch any of the natural selection at Revelstoke?
I've watched some of it, just on my phone.
It's pretty great, isn't it?
Aye, it's always good to watch. Yeah.
But I mean, just that powder, it's like, man, I still don't think, or I'm still hoping that I haven't had my best powder day. I'm still hoping that it's in front of me.
Yeah.
Because I haven't really had like that all-time trip. Do you know what I mean?
I'm trying to think. Lake Louise might have been where you just couldn't afford to fall over.
Right.
Otherwise, you had to fight your way to get to your bindings, to get your feet out, to walk till you could find a cat track or somewhere you could even get back into your board to get going again.
No way.
To launch off. Yeah. And it's the first time was so frustrating, because I was just sinking and just getting wound up, using all this energy, just trying to get out.
I know. There was a time in Les Arts where it was snowing. Like, we were down in Borg and it was snowing and snowing and snowing, and we rode underneath the funicular back down to Borg, and there was a field where you basically had to go really straight, and nobody made it across, and you unclipped, and you literally had to swim out of this field because it was so deep. You just weren't getting any purchase anywhere, like you weren't touching the bottom, so you just had to sort of like get on your board and sort of paddle out like a surfboard.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have had some deep pow, but I haven't had like that all-time day. Do you know what I mean? Like that one that you can be like, do you know what? If it all ended now, I'd be stoked. Yeah,
but we were never great at being in powder because we didn't really find it in Scotland, so we were used to hard pack. So when you are across there and they've maybe only got 4 meters of snow, they're saying, "Oh, this is a dreadful season."
Yeah, this is low tide.
And they'll have kickers at the side of the runs, and it might have a foot or 2 foot of snow, and I'm thinking, well, that's backflippable, and these guys would be, and the kicker might only be 2 foot high, and you'd be throwing flips off of there, and they just think you're absolutely insane. It's like, no, guys, you don't know where I've come from. You've never been to the Lecht, you've not been to the Gorm where we're missing rocks and things, and it's so they couldn't comprehend, the how small our resorts are and what little snow we get sometimes. When you go out there, it was just a treat.
Yeah. Let's talk quickly about Scotland then, because quite shockingly, I came up there for the first time last year.
Right.
And managed to get some powder turns. Me and Johnny Barr got some powder turns at the Gorm, and that was cool.
Yeah. He'll know where to find them. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, we lucked out. I believe I really lucked out. But through your snowboarding career, you've obviously seen how, I don't want to be too down, but obviously climate change is very real, and Scotland is sort of feeling the brunt of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you sort of explain how it's changed over your time?
It would affect every shop, but certainly for the small shops who were relying more on people riding Scotland, because the bigger shops people would buy to go abroad.
Yeah.
Whereas for us, we could order 30 grand of stock, and there has been seasons where there is no snow.
Yeah.
I'm going into summer with a 30 grand overdraft, thinking I've sold almost nothing. And yeah, it affected everything. It's your own bloody moods.
Yeah.
So, it was your whole life was affected by it. But yeah, getting a good season has been hard. 2010 was amazing. Yeah. That was long ago.
Yeah.
I think there was a good
15 years ago.
There was a good season in bloody 2020, I think, when COVID was on the go.
That's right.
And you weren't allowed to go to the hill, and there was so much good snow.
Yeah.
So it has affected, yet we're not getting nearly the amount of snow we used to get.
You think that it's definitely got, like, the snowfall has got less and less over time?
Yeah, without a doubt. And just by people, local riders who would just say, I only go boarding abroad now. Yeah. And fair dues, some of them are just like, no, I'm not riding Scotland because I just have to come back with my board and get it filled P-texed up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved it regardless, because if you're riding in Scotland, you're prepared to ride anywhere on the planet.
Yeah.
If you could put up with this and enjoy it, you're going to love anywhere.
Yeah.
So it was a good training ground.
Yeah, fair play. Amen to that. Yeah, I found it quite... What I found is that Aviemore felt very much like Bourg Saint-Maurice.
Mm-hmm.
Like just the vibe around it. I kept having to tell myself that I wasn't in France, that I was in England. Or sorry, in Scotland. Sorry to all the Scottish people out there. But do you know what I mean? Like, and then sort of coming down from the mountain and going into the big Tesco's was really weird. That freaked me out. I was still in my snowboarding kit in Tesco's in Aviemore. I was just like, this is really fucking weird.
That's it. It was better when it wasn't so busy.
Yeah.
Were you ever in Aviemore when Chevy's was there? No.
No, that was my first. I hate to say it, but that was my first time up there last year.
Because that's when it was just a scene.
Yeah.
Skate comps, snowboard comps. Me and Ross at North 57 would hook up, have New Year parties, and do skate and snowboard comps. And the scene was unbelievable up in Aviemore then.
Yeah.
It was what a great vibe. And people would flock to it. So you just met interesting people.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, Scotland sort of had its own thing going on. Do you know what I mean? It felt like down south, sort of there were dry slopes. I mean, around London where I grew up, there was about 4 or 5 dry slopes.
Yeah.
And it felt like Scotland had that same thing going on. They didn't necessarily need everywhere else. You guys had a thing. Yeah. And it was quite a strong, a real strong identity and scene of your own.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. A lot of the Southerners, to them, they could just go to Europe. It was easy.
Yeah.
But for us, we'll just ride our local hill or a farmer's field. And you guys had the dry slopes, which is hardcore. We had wet slopes. Might be no snow, but just as long as the heather was wet, that was good enough.
On the dry slope, if we had a frost, you could kind of go off on the grass on the side because it was slippery enough. I guess that's the same thing.
Off piste.
But it's these shared, I guess, but what it is that's made the whole sort of UK scene what it is these shared hardships. Mm-hmm. Like snowboarding's not, although, going to your local dry slope, it's consistent and it's there. It's still pretty hardcore. Do you know what I mean? It's not like if you live in the mountains and you've got, you've got your season pass and off you go. Like these, and the way it integrates with your life, like for you living up there, the mountains are part of your life, but they're very changeable and they are hardcore. Like the weather up there's unpredictable, and I think it is this sort of hardcoreness that has helped make the UK scene different to most other countries. Yeah, do you agree with that?
Yeah, we weren't spoiled with amazing snow around us. It was you had to work at it to go somewhere to find a hill or a wave or whatever it was.
Yeah.
In a good day, we'd go up there and there would be blizzards, but you still got out there and battled through the snow just to get a slide.
Yeah.
Into the pub afterwards, just face burning or goatee of just ice, and that was just the way it was, but it was still fun.
Yeah, well, I think that's something we can all be proud of, is that heritage. I think that's
the British scene is tight. Yeah, it's good.
I think so.
Yeah.
And so, what happened with the shop? Or what happened to you to, move on or whatever it is you did? Tell me about that.
Well, it was things were getting hard after even 20 years.
Yeah.
My two elder brothers had opened a shop back in 97 when I came back from Canada.
Was that Urbanology?
Yeah, that was the one. So they'd opened up in the next street. So they were robbing some brands, and a bit of dishonest going on between suppliers, and just saying, yeah, we're stocking this. And so it ended up, my only competition were my two elder brothers in the next street.
Was that, I don't want to get into this if this isn't, if you don't want to talk about it, but was it amicable, was it fine or?
Oh no, it was painful.
Beef?
They tried to shut me down.
Shit.
So yeah, I haven't spoken to them for 28 years.
Oh man.
Yeah. So no, I had to replace them with all my friends, and my family is the Boarders, and what I've got now. I've got my own daughter and everything. My wife. I've got my life to worry about.
Yeah.
The financial side of my shop, I just hung in there, just out of determination. Just the audacity. I'm like, fucking no chance. I'm gonna keep going ESP forever. 93 till 92 till infinity. It was.
I love that.
And so I just kept going, and so then it was a matter of there are no holidays. I need every penny to keep this shop going.
Yeah.
If anything, it was a kick up the arse for me to make the shop even better.
Yeah.
And then they shut down, and things started to go digital, and by this time it was coming up for nearer the 25-year mark.
Yeah.
And so when the shop got to 25 years, I turned 50, and had said, if I can't get it sold or moved on, I'm just going to shut. I need a change.
Yeah.
I'm done. There were not really any trade shows anymore. Everything was digital catalogues, and I just lost the love of retail.
Did you ever go to that trade show that was in Telford? I remember not going to the GMEX for a while, and then I got invited to DJ at a party. I think it changed its name to Slide, and it was in Telford. And I just remember walking in there. And it was,
I've been to Slide once. Yeah,
just remember it being really quiet, and there was only a handful of snowboard brands there, and I was just like, "What happened?"
Aye,
and I guess that's what happened. Is
the companies as well just try to save their own money. Whether reps getting laid off, so they would say you have to come and see it at our showroom, and so the excitement was kind of gone. I want to see my rep and have a beer with him, and get the crack, and he'll tell me this board's good, that's board. They've ridden it and things, and so I just had to get out of it. and I was going to be half 100 years old, and the shop was a quarter century, and I needed a change for my own sanity.
Yeah.
So yeah, I managed to find one of the work experience kids that I'd taught through the shop back in the day, who was a keen skater.
Yeah.
He took it on with the help of his mum, but it's since closed. So yeah, ESP is no more.
That's a shame.
It's still in the shed. So to me, ESP is always here.
What does ESP stand for?
Earth and Surf Products.
Earth and Surf Products. And do you know what? I never knew that.
Yeah. People would think it would stand for Elgin Surf Posse or Snow Posse.
I was definitely thinking Elgin was the E.
Yeah, Elgin, you would think. Yeah. Yeah.
So what then did you go on to do once you shut the shop, or once you moved away from the shop?
Yeah, moved away from the shop. Went 3 years as an undertaker.
Oh yeah.
Which was an amazing job.
Really? Tell me a bit more about that. What do you have to do?
Everything.
But when you say everything, like...
You'd have to do the pickups, whether it's from a care home or from a private home.
Yeah.
Take them back, get them cleaned and dressed, and
sure.
Velvet lining the boxes, the casks, and the whole burial side of it.
How did you get into that?
It was a customer of mine, was a local undertaker.
Yeah.
And he'd offered me a job. He said, "Yeah, if you want to come and work for me once you sell up, be happy to have you work for us." So yeah, I went to work there. Wow. And yeah, it was a great job. Yeah, very good job. And so there for 3 years, and then I moved to maintenance at local care homes.
Okay.
So I've been doing the maintenance for the last 5.5 years.
Yeah.
For the old people, hanging out with them. So that's good.
And you sort of said earlier that arthritis, is that stopping you from snowboarding now? Have you hung up your boots? I was hoping to get up a good day this season and never get around to it, thinking it could be my last slide unless I go out to Canada again and get some super nice conditions. But even winter time in the mornings, I'd run my hands under the hot tap just to get them moving a bit easier. Shit, that
bad. My fingers and wrists and elbows are the worst. So even pushing myself up off the floor would be a struggle. I would always do press-ups morning, at night time. Yeah. Now, 10 press-ups are painful. And I can't do them on my flat of my hands because my wrist doesn't bend back enough.
Right.
So you have to just do them straight on your knuckles to keep your wrist straight.
Fucking hell.
Throwing darts, I've been the last 5-6 years, I throw darts with my left hand now because my right wrist's too painful. So I learned to play with my left hand, using my tools in my left hand.
Yeah.
Sometimes washing your hair or anything, just you get shooting pains in your wrist and fingers. So yeah, I just get used to it. It's part of getting old.
But if that opportunity came up, you'd still try and get away?
Oh, certainly Scotland. I want to go back up to the Lecht and have a last slide up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I was abroad in Canada, I'd probably get a slide up there in the conditions that they've got.
Yeah. Smash a load of painkillers and just go for it. Well, I hope you do get. I hope you haven't. I hope you haven't had your last day. That would seem.
Well, I'll get up. I need to get up just to
Because I was chatting. I interviewed Mon from SS20.
Yeah. For
his episode earlier on in the season, and he can't ride anymore because of his knees.
Yeah.
But he didn't know his last day was his last day.
Right.
And I was just thinking, I sort of thought about that, and I thought, is it better to know when you're calling time on it, or is it better just to sort of have that happen and you can't do anything about it? I don't really know where I am with that.
Yeah, I don't know myself, but yeah, I know I want to go up for another slide, but it would have to be good conditions because the cold my body is just sore without even boarding.
Yeah.
every morning it's painful, but I don't take any of the pharmaceuticals. I'm not going to take any of the drugs that they prescribe you because all the side effects.
Yeah.
So you just end up, it's just pain management. It becomes normal to have sore wrists and fingers and other joints in the body. But I'm always happy to be, on the top side of the grass. So I'm not too bothered if I'm sore, because there's always somebody who's sorer.
Well, amen to that. All right. So if you can, describe to me what snowboarding has brought your life over your life. What it means to you.
Oh, it's been, 25 years plus more, but just with the shop alone, snowboarding's brought me the friendship of hundreds of people. It's got me travelling. It's got other people into board sports, whether it be surfing, skating, snowboarding, watching kids, pick it up, love it, and then they go on their own journeys and come back with their stories. And it's a massive community. To me, it's just been amazing to have been a part of it. Lucky for me, having a shop and getting cheap gear. That's all it was about to start with. The fact that it went further, and I ended up having shop riders and doing the trade shows and getting over the moon that I've been involved in British snowboarding scene.
Okay. And then I mean you must have got hundreds of people snowboarding. So if you can imagine I'm someone who hasn't been snowboarding for a while, like a few years, because of whatever, family pressure or money or whatever, but I'm sort of feeling the itch for it. Or I'm somebody that's not been before, that's sort of showing a sort of vague curiosity at it. Why should I be going snowboarding? Just
to get out of the house, get away from the computer, or get the fresh air in your face, go up a mountain. Some people haven't, been up a mountain even.
Yeah.
And I would just be, if they were in my town, I'd be jumping the car. I've got a spare board. We'll get you going. And I'd just be hands-on, one-on-one, take them by the hand and take them down the slopes. And I'm pretty sure they will love it, because I want them to love it and have the same buzz I've got from it.
Yeah.
It's just hard to describe, but for all the kids that have thanked me over the years, whatever sport they've done, they've just said, I'm glad I got into this board sport, because they love it. So I've made that person happy and enhanced their life with a board sport. There's self-pride in the hundreds or thousands of people I've got into the sport over, the last 30 odd years.
Yeah.
That's a big thing to have made so many people happy and get them to do a cool sport.
So there you go, Mike McWatt up there in Elgin in Scotland. A quick apology when I said about England in there. Hope I didn't upset any Scottish listeners. No offence meant, just me getting tripped over my own tongue as usual. Mike, what a legendary story. I mean, this is what makes our scene so great, makes our history so great, is people like Mike that just love the sport and want so many people to experience what he's experienced, and will go out of his way to make that happen for people. I mean, the internet doesn't give you that. And I think that's a shame. I mean, I know I did say it in the episode that, I'm not one for nostalgia. I said this on Jenny and Tim's The Après pod. I'm not into nostalgia, but I do think that snowboarding was better when there were loads of shops and loads of people like Mike working in shops, stoking kids out, stoking grown-ups out about the sport of snowboarding and what it can do for your life and how it can change and open up whole new horizons. We talked a bit about that with the snow camp crew a few episodes ago. it's such a brilliant way of literally changing your horizons. And people like Mike at the front line talking to people who have never done it or only get to do it once a year, or is just incredible. And those, they don't put themselves in the mountains. Granted, Elgin isn't too far from the Scottish Highlands, but they're not in the mountains, but they're surrounded by snowboarding every day. They know what's going on. They know what kit you want. They know how to have the right experience of going snowboarding. And I think that's kind of lost. So shout out to you, Mike, and to anyone who's working in a snowboard shop or who used to run a snowboard shop. I mean, there used to be so many in this country. You'd look through the backs of magazines and see so many adverts for snowboarding shops, and now there's a handful, and I think that's a shame. I mean, we're lucky that the biggest shop, the Snowboard Asylum, and I'm not saying this because they support this podcast, but I'm saying it because they are run by snowboarders. They are the same people, and they're as stoked on you going snowboarding as they are on themselves going snowboarding. So while we have the Snowboard Asylum and the other few shops that we've got in this country, we need to support them as much as possible. So don't do your shopping online. Find your local shop, go in and speak to them and get the right advice and get the right kit and pay the money, because you are then supporting snowboarding. You're supporting your favourite brands, and that's important. All right, rant over. Got a bit ranty, didn't it? What else is going on? Yeah, as I said at the top, between now and the last episode, the season ender, and we've got an absolute banger for you, is going to be, I'm going to be in France, hopefully helping my kids see the mountains for the first time, and hopefully they take to it. So that's quite exciting. You've got until the 9th of April if you want to win this limited edition Burton Custom 158 Lax Open 10th anniversary, one of 50 boards that I'm giving away. TSA are throwing in a wheelie board bag. I might even see if anybody else fancies throwing in some goodies as well. If you want to win that, you've got to go and find my post on the Instagram. Thank you, Snowboarding Podcast on Instagram. And you've got to find the post from a couple of weeks ago where I described what you got to do and why we're doing it. Basically, you can't win the board for yourself. You've got to tag a mate and tell me in that comment why your friend deserves to get this board. And this board is brand new. It's a thing of beauty. I want it to be ridden. It's not a wall hanger. I could have kept it for myself and hung it up on a wall for whatever reason. But I'm lucky enough to get to go on these trips and get to go snowboarding basically in the places that I've been. I got to go out to Lecht. I've been there twice now, and I'm like the least important person at any of these events, but they still have me along. So I'm lucky in that sense. So I don't need this board. I want somebody else to have it that's going to be stoked on it. So I'm going to announce it on Thursday the 10th at the end of the last episode of the season. So if you want to know if you've won, you've got to tune in, and I'll tell you then what the next steps are. But if you want to win, or you have a friend who deserves a brand new snowboard, and it's a 158 custom, so if you've got a mate who's a behemoth at 6'5" with size 12 feet, they're not going to be able to ride it. So nominate a friend who you think's going to get on really well with a 158 Burton Custom. I would like that person to be stoked. I would like that person to go and ride it. So you have to go and find the post on Instagram from a couple of weeks ago where I explain the whole thing. And you've got to put a comment in there tagging your friend in and telling me why that friend deserves to win a board. So you can't win it for yourself, but you can win it for your snowboarding homie. So yeah. And then speaking of Snowboard Asylum, they're throwing in a wheelie board bag for that board to go in. They have got a sale on at the moment. If you haven't had your trip yet, Easter is late this year, so all the mountains are open. Looks like good conditions across the Alps. I'll be reporting back from the Three Valleys over this next week. There's still plenty of snowboarding to be done. We're not done yet for this season. So if you need any kit, Snowboard Asylum have a sale on. Go and support. If not them, go and support your local snowboard shop. If you're lucky enough to have someone in your town or city that is an independent snowboard shop, go and support them. And if you can't, then hit up the Snowboard Asylum. They've got everything you need for your trip. They've got all the advice, all the knowledge. From what I can understand, they've still got plenty of stock left from this season. So go and bag yourself a bargain. And even if you're not going this season, then you might want to get ahead of the game for next season. Things don't change that much now. Snowboard companies are getting a bit more wary of releasing tons and tons of new kit every year. So things aren't changing that much. So you will get good stuff that will last and last. I think that's the takeaway from snowboarding at the moment, is that the kit that is out there is good and it will last you a long time. So grab a bargain at the Snowboard Asylum. And if you do go into a shop and see them, tell them I sent you. That would be good to know. What else is going on? There's bits and pieces up on the YouTube channel. Go and check that out. The last few episodes, I've been gathering photos from people to go with their episodes. So if you're not listening to this on YouTube, which is fair enough, I do believe podcasts are an auditory thing, not a visual thing. But anybody like Duncan Carr, Ian Cocking, sent me loads and loads of pictures, so I kind of turned them into a slideshow. So if you are interested in a bit more of a visual content, you can go and have a look at our YouTube channel. And then there's Shred Flicks, all the British snowboard flicks are up there. And then there's other bits and pieces of interest that I particularly like. If you've got any recommendations that we should add to our Shred Flicks playlist, then get in touch. And you can get in touch either on the DMs on Instagram at Thank You Snowboarding Podcast, or hit me up with an email, thankyouSnowboarding@gmail.com. Be always good to hear from you. People write in and tell me their stories and how they got into snowboarding or whatever, and I love hearing that. So if you want to get in touch, that's how you do it. What was the other thing? Oh, I just remembered something and then I've forgotten it again. Oh, the Spotify playlist. Every track that introduces every episode is on a Thank You Snowboarding playlist on Spotify. Spotify is obviously the enemy to my day job, but it's a necessary evil, and there is a playlist up on there that you can go and find. This week's episode, actually, in fact, the same as Ian Cocking's from a couple of weeks ago, is from the movie Scream of Consciousness. It is MC 900 Foot Jesus, track called In the City. And that features in that movie. So that is proper way back. And that movie is on our Shredflix playlist. So go and have a look at that. If you want to see some proper old school snowboarding. That's what it looked like in the very early 90s, I think it was. Or 89, 90, around that time. Actually, not too different to how it looks now. People still shredding trees in Japan, still trying to find powder. I mean, snowboarding essentially, in essence, hasn't really changed that much. It's all about trying to find some good fresh snow with your mates and shredding and laughing and falling over and all the good stuff. So yeah. And I think that's it for now. Next week's on the 10th of April will be the season ender for this season. I've got a few little things that are going to drop over the summer. But yeah, the season has to end somewhere, and we've got a banging guest next week. So keep it locked for that. Will be Thursdays, 10 a.m. as always, and then there'll be a bit of a break for the summer, and then we'll come back with more exciting stories of snowboarding and interesting people over next winter. It's already locked in. So yeah, exciting times. All right, I'm rambling now, proper rambling. God. I hope you're all well. Thank you, snowboarding. Peace.